Cesare Beccaria was an Italian lawyer and social philosopher who wrote a book back in 1764 called On Crimes and Punishments. It was an innovation at the time, a revelation. This was a time of enlightenment, even in jurisprudential terms. And his ideas affected most modern jurisprudential systems, most modern criminal law systems, and including that of our own, because our founding fathers used many of his ideas in crafting the way we approach things in this country and in most of the Western world these days. Now, what Beccaria saw was a need to balance compassion with the necessity of keeping civil order in society. Keep in mind, up to this point, the harshest remedies were often meted out for what we would consider today to be relatively minor crimes or less than very serious crimes. And so his ideas changed the way we looked at things. We see a lot of that in Queen versus Dudley and Stephens, an 1884 English case. It's a Queen's Bench case, of course, which means it's an English case. And it provides a graphic example of some of the issues that we've been wrestling with since that time and since the time of On Crimes and Punishment back in 1764. Now, this case involves the Mignonette, an English yacht, and its ill-fated crew. There were four members of the crew. The captain was a fellow named Dudley, devoutly religious, a married father of three, highly respected, very religious man, carried Bibles onto most of the boats that he would captain. A fellow named Stephens, who was a married father of five. Stephens had a rather sterling reputation as well. However, he had been on another ship that had wrecked, and he had a little bit of redemption to do here, even though he was not at fault in that case. But he needed to get back in the game, and Dudley gave him that opportunity. Then there was Brooks. Brooks purported to be a bachelor, but he may have been married, and there was some talk that he was on the run from his wife. Those were the three grown men, the three adults on the boat. And then there was Richard Parker, little Ricky. He was more a boy than a man. He was a sort of a ne'er-do-well, a rapscallion. He lived a wild life. He was illiterate. He had nothing to offer society or add to society, but the fact that he knew how to have fun. He loved having fun. And he signed on as an attempt to seize his path to manhood. And so those are the four main characters in this, what has become a passion play. There was a storm, and these four crew members were cast away in a lifeboat. Let's see if we can, there's the Mignonette, the name of the yacht. There's a picture of the yacht. Now, when this yacht crashes, the four crew members, including the captain here in the center, and the others climb into this little dinghy, this little lifeboat here, and they're at sea for some time. They're 1,600 miles from land. They have no water. The only food they have are 2 cans of turnips. Hard to imagine how a can of turnips would taste. And they caught a turtle about the 4th day in, and the turtle meat sustained them by up to about the 12th day, when they ran out of food, and there was nothing left to eat, nothing more they could catch. They had no water. They were catching rainwater as best they could. And come the 18th day, they'd gone 7 days without anything. They were delirious. Little Ricky was worse off than any of them. Little Ricky was very, very sick, in and out of consciousness, could hardly communicate, totally listless. And they decided at one point that unless they took the life of one of them and used that for sustenance, used that body for sustenance, they would all die. And so there was some talk about how to go about this. Needless to say, little Ricky was not included in the conversation, but he was the weakest among them. He was the one nearest death. And had they waited a bit longer, he probably would have died naturally. But they were afraid that they would have been too weak at that point to recover, to survive, even if he had preceded them in death and they were able to find some sustenance from his flesh and his blood. Um, you can see them in the lifeboat here. Little Ricky's down in the bow, isolated. The three older men are consulting, talking about their options, trying to decide what to do. And at some point, they did decide to kill and survive off the flesh and the blood of little Ricky. Here he is, deceased. You can see that there's an incision being made to remove some flesh that they would eat. They treated him very respectfully. These were good men, and here's one of them drinking his blood from a vessel. Um, so they go back to England. They're put on trial. The question becomes, should they be punished? What was their crime? Do they have natural defenses? Is there a self-defense argument to be made here? Is there a defense of others argument to be made here? Should it matter that little Ricky was close to death anyways? Should it matter that he had the least to donate, to contribute to society? Should that have anything to do with their punishment? And should we look at some of the traditional rationale for punishment? There's the utilitarian theory of punishment. And that means just getting people out of society so we don't have to look at them, think about them, or deal with them. It's pure utility. Put them away for a while or execute them, but just remove them from our midst. Should vengeance have anything to do with this? Should there be an eye for an eye? Should we try to satisfy societal bloodlust? Is there any purpose, legitimate purpose to that? Is there any question of the need for rehabilitation or the possibility of rehabilitation here? Or these three defendants, or in the case of Dudley and Stephens, are they the kinds of individuals who would perhaps do better, repent, change their ways if they were sent away for a while? Is that even, should that even be an issue here? They seem to be good people from the get-go. Should we look at deterrence? There are two forms of deterrence. There's individual deterrence, where we try to punish in such a way that the individuals who committed the crime and were convicted are deterred from ever doing it again. And then there's general deterrence. We punish wrongdoers because we want the word to go out to society, telling society that if you think about this, think about it long and hard, and then walk away, because if you don't, here's what can happen to you. So the big question is, what is to be gained by punishment? This next slide is really not related to the legal issues here, but it's just too strange to not include. It turns out that Edgar Allan Poe had predicted the future. He wrote one novel, and it was about four shipwrecked men who ran out of food and ate the cabin boy. Richard Parker was the cabin boy's name in the novel. This was 46 years before the Mignonette crashed, and before the four crew members got into that lifeboat, and before they killed and ate for sustenance the cabin boy, whose name in real life was Richard Parker. So I offer that to you just so you don't forget the Queen versus Dudley and Stephens, but it is a strange tale and it's hard to pass up. Now, we have to face this punishment conundrum. These are big questions the society has been asking since the beginning of crime. Who do we punish? How do we punish them? And why do we punish them? And an old friend of mine who was a criminologist in Alabama, he was in Pennsylvania, helping the Pennsylvania Sentencing Commission try to strike this balance, trying to figure out who do we punish, how do we punish them, and why do we punish them. He said this, and he had a country boy way of putting things. He says, you folks in Pennsylvania, you simply have to decide who you're afraid of versus who you're mad at. Now, if you're afraid of somebody, a long term of imprisonment, even death, might be the appropriate result. But if these are people you're just mad at, then you have to find some other way to bring them back into the fold, to keep them in the system, and to help them become good citizens again. So that's what we deal with. Now, that's the part of the backdrop, part of the canvas against which we will be studying all the cases that we're going to cover in this course of criminal law.